Hello, we're back again for part 2 of developing closer relationships. So we're going to talk about intimacy first in greater detail than we've already defined it. And the first thing to say is that it is something that develops over time. It is not something, emotional intimacy, that you gain in a week or 2 or a month or 6 months. Okay, you will have feelings of closeness with someone immediately, but that's not the same thing as developing emotional intimacy of any depth. The second feature is that you're exchanging significant information, not just common knowledge or superficial stuff. This goes along in a pattern of deeper and deeper mutual self-disclosure. It also signifies intimacy that you are having repeated, unique experiences that you share, and also that you're able to navigate and move beyond barriers and difficulties and conflicts, okay? And lastly, intimacy really is about expressing a caring and an understanding of someone. Yes? Okay. So, in terms of self-disclosure, we can have 3 different levels of that. One is mild, and then we have moderate, and then deep, and then there's something called a lockbox. I want to talk about each of these rather rapidly. The first one is mild. That's basically things like where you work, where you're from, number of brothers and sisters. A moderate level would be what your spiritual belief system was, whether you've ever been in love, whether you ever want to have kids, your health history, those kinds of things. And then a deep level of intimacy and self-disclosure is difficult events and how you've handled them, why past relationships failed and your part in that. And then the last one is lockbox. This has to do with the thing that each of us has, which is composed of things we don't share with other people. And we don't have to unless a couple of things are present. But what's in that lockbox are things that we have shame about, things we've stolen. If you've ever stolen anything, experiences that you have guilt and shame about or that you want no one else to know about, that have very deep feelings about them that you want to keep to yourself. Now, if those things are bothering you, particularly if they're getting in the way of you developing this relationship, let's say you're developing a romantic relationship and these things are getting in the way, or you are spending an awful lot of time thinking about them, then the first step is to get some help with that. A trained clergy person or a licensed therapist. And then you can decide whether it's appropriate to tell that person about what this is. So one thing you may know about or not is that therapists like me often see couples where one or the other may have had an abuse event from the past and they don't want to share that with their partner for a variety of reasons, and they don't have to, but now maybe it's intruding into the relationship in one way or another, and now they're trying to figure out whether they should tell their partner about this. So I always recommend talk to somebody who's professional first, maybe work through it, and then decide if you can work through it, decide whether it's a good idea to tell your partner and how to do that. Okay, so let me talk to you about what forgiveness is briefly, and I will do that by saying only one thing. Forgiveness is about letting go of anger. It's about letting go of anger, yeah? Because holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Okay, so forgiveness is really for the person who's been wronged, not for the person who wronged you. Okay, let's talk about trust. Trust is crucial to any deepening relationship. Without it, there's no risk-taking, there's no deepening of the relationship. There shouldn't be. Trust is about roughly equal levels of self-disclosure over time, then consistency between words and behavior. Are those things the same? Then representing things as fact, not changing the details to benefit you. Don't mislead. Don't hide inner thoughts or feelings that are relevant. And then lastly, keeping information private. That's very critical to this. Okay. One thing that I have always recommended is the trust test. The trust test is if you are trying to figure out whether you should do or say something, or evaluate something you've done or said, and whether it is a threat to the relationship, there's only one question you need to ask, and that is, can you do or say, or have you done or said, anything that you couldn't say or do in front of your partner? If the answer is you could do or say it in front of your partner, not a problem. If the answer is no, it's a breach. It's a breach of trust. It's a breach of intimacy. And now commitment. Commitment is an unwillingness to entertain the idea of anyone else. And if we're talking about romantic relationships, you don't have one foot out the door. You don't have any sense of attachment to anyone else. Okay? You're devoted to working through difficult times. You're pledging to not bail when things get tough. And you're going to work for the relationship and do what the relationship needs, even though it may not benefit you. How about that? Okay. So, universal fears. These are interesting. One is abandonment and separation. By the way, everybody has these. That's why they're called universal fears. Yeah. So, abandonment and separation. That's the fear of being left, being rejected, being alone. Second universal fear is unworthiness. Believing you're not good enough, that if anybody really knew you, they wouldn't like you, that they wouldn't love you. Everybody has that one to some degree. And then surrender and trust, the idea that you might be engulfed and you lose yourself and you disappear. That's what the butterflies and reluctance on right before a wedding is about. Well, everybody has these. The problem is only when they get to be huge, when they start to negatively influence the way you interact with somebody and think about the relationship. Okay, but you have to acknowledge that you have some of this some of the time, and they ebb and flow depending on what's going on. But if you're a secure person and the relationship is secure, these might come up once in a while, but that's not a problem. They won't override your sense of security and your sense of trust. Okay, love is not a single feeling. It's not even a group of feelings. It's really more about what you do. Really about more of what you do. And different people have different styles of love. What Chapman said were love languages. He wrote a book called Love Languages in 1985 and a number of subsequent books for that are very interesting and easy to follow. And I recommend you pick that up or just Google it and you'll come up with some of the stuff and you can use that in your relationship. It's kind of fun. And he had 5 different languages. And what these are the ways that you would like your partner to demonstrate their love for you by doing these things. And so you have one predominant channel or language. You don't have to have, you can have all of them, but you have one big one. And they are words of affirmation or appreciation. So that's one. 2, spending quality time with your partner. Giving and receiving gifts. That's for the mercenary, It's not really. Acts of service, doing things for your partner that they would appreciate. And then physical touch, which means either affection and or sex. Okay? So what you do when you take this little quiz that's available online or in his main book in 95 Love Languages is that if each of you do that, you exchange them and you discover that what you thought was the primary way in which they wanted you to demonstrate your love was not what you were doing, and vice versa. Because we usually end up thinking that the way we want love demonstrated is the way everybody wants love demonstrated. That's not true. Okay, so I have a lot on attraction, and I want to go through it very quickly. We are attracted to people who are like us, who are similar to us, okay, in our general level of attractiveness physically, in sense of humor, in socioeconomic status, in terms of education background, in terms of core moral values, all of those things we are attracted to. And when you start a new romantic relationship, you probably don't know what those are in the other person internally, like values and so on. And you have to sort of figure those out and get a sense for whether those really are the values and qualities of that person. That takes time, you know. But it's very interesting to see how consistent this all is. Now, physical attractiveness has a genetic base because outer physical attractiveness is a mirror of internal genetic quality, actually. So things like certain waist-hip ratios, which are around 0.7 in females, 0.9 in males, clear skin, facial qualities like symmetry of the face, in females, larger eyes, and clear complexion, and thick hair, thick shiny hair. In males, it's a square jaw and clear skin and those kinds of things. Well, in each case, it's about, in females, it's about fertility. Okay? So it's more about youth, actually, for most of those things. And in males, it's more about testosterone. Because those facial qualities come from the estrogen and testosterone that are given to us by genetics at puberty. Pretty interesting, huh? Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to come up with a couple things here. I want you to understand that infatuation is a neurochemical storm. At least that's what I call it. We have a number of hormones and neurochemistry, neurotransmitters that are firing away that nature wants us to have to form a pair bond and ultimately perhaps make babies, to derive a dyad that can protect and provide for offspring. So dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, epinephrine, these are all related to this neurochemical storm. That production in the brain of those chemicals doesn't go on all that long. It goes on for about 6 or 7 months. Some people say a year. I tend to think 6 or 7 months based on some limited research I've done. But matter not, it doesn't last. So the infatuation part of a relationship goes away, and it gives way to really having a chance to develop a true mature love with someone. And I would venture to say that the definition of love could be, though there are many, right? Everybody has a different definition. In fact, when a partner tells you, I love you, and you say, I love you back for the first time, you have no idea what they mean by that. None. Some people mean, oh, now I get to serve you and be your slave. Other people say, well, now I get to dominate you. Other people say, well, it means we're going to split everything 50-50 and we're going to be really counting the P's and Q's on this, you know. Everybody has a different idea about what it means. Some people mean it in the best of ways. Some people mean it in a way that you definitely don't mean it. So here's one definition that I think is really good. And it comes from Scott Peck originally. I've altered it somewhat. It's when your partner's well-being and development are as important to you as your own, then you can say you love them. How about that? Okay. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye to you, and please read more on this subject, both in your text on developing closer relationships, the PowerPoint, and hopefully you've looked this far into the video. Thank you. See you later.